Okay, you guys. So one of the things I want to do, like just starting off, this is like my new like minhag for Shirim.
Shots.
I mean, that's not my minhag. That could be another. That could be in certain locations.
Yeah.
Shavuot. I wanted to say the Anna B'Koach, and if you guys could join in with me, it would be nice. And the whole idea is like, I want to be able to communicate ideas not from me, but like more so being a channel from a higher place. So I feel like the Anna B'Koach connects us to that. That's the spirits of being a channel. So if you guys could join in with me. So
Singing?
no, not singing.
Just saying it?
I'm not joining if I can.
Let's sing it a little.
Come on,
Okay.
For the spirit of it. Hesed, Ana Bekoach Gedulat Yimeneka Tati Sira Aleph Bet Gimel Yutov Sadek. Hesed connects us to this channel of sharing, infinite light, connecting us to Abraham Avinu and all the greatness that he achieved, completing all the 10 tests. Givorah. Kabel Rina Tameka Savenu Toreno Nura Kufre Shine Sintek Nun. Givorah allows us to receive the light of Abraham, but in the right proportions, the proportions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us, and being able to create limitations and to be able to create boundaries and to be able to create fences and all the things that allow us to receive the light in a healthy way. Tiferet. Na Gibor Doshe Yimaneka Kavarat Sharim Nun Gimodal Yud Shin. Tiferet connects us to Yaakov Avinu. The only reason, the reason why we have a B'nai Israel connects us to the full completion of the 3-column system, the connection to complete balance, to oneness, to the torso of our bodies, everything with that connection. Sustenance. So Netzach, Baharam, Tafaram, Rachamei, Sikazaka, Kamini, Betet Reish Sadik Tov Gimel, connects us to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, connects us to prophecy. We should think about Moshe Rabbeinu and the aspect of our body that's connected to Moshe Rabbeinu when we walk into shul. But it's that power, it's that netzach, it's that ability for victory, it's that connection to prophecy, as we're learning in Shir. And we should have that through all of our days. And we should connect to now the level of Lord. Chasim, Kadosh, Baruch, Tutav, Nabala, Adadecha. Chet Kuf Bet Tet Nun Ayin connects us to this aspect of clairvoyance, deep insight in the angel Hodiel. As we learn, in the angel Hodiel is in control of all the pranasa, all the sustenance, all the abundance of everything that we want comes to this channel of angels, and there's a whole system of it as we learned in our shir. Oh yeah. And we, to connect to the true pranasa, we have to have in mind all the 70 nations. Thank you, Rabbi Yishai. We should connect to all the angels of all the nations, and we should have them in mind in all of our tefillah, all of our limud Torah, everything that we do. And from there, we bring the proper shefa down into this world. Level of Yesod. Yain Ge'eh Amcha Penei Zochre Chadusha Tzedekah. Yud Gimel Lamed Pei Kuf connects us to Yosef Hasadek, and Yosef Hasadek is the channel of ultimate abundance. He is the one that, you know, had a dream that everybody, his brothers will bow down to him, the planets and the stars will bow down to him when he was a kid. And when he got older, he realized that it wasn't that they were bowing down to him, more so that he was organizing them for the frame of Yehuda, who was Malchut. And so Yosef Hasadek is the ultimate ability for us to restrict our lower desires, to connect to our greater self, and achieve and live a life and beyond reality. Any challenge that we go through in life, we'll be able to succeed and we'll be able to rise to the top through the merit of Yosef Hasadek. Any Yam Suf that we are faced with in our life, through the merit of Yosef Hasadek, we'll be able to walk through it, and it will split for us because of those reasons. and Yosef Hasadik will give us ability to reunite our families and our family members and lost members from different tribes. We'll be able to bring them all back together, and we'll be able to produce a new lineage that we learned out through Ephraim and Manasseh that corrected all the tikkunim of all the brothers before that, and we should all have that in our lives. Malchut. Shavatenu kabel ushma zakatenu yodela talamot shin kufvav sadik yutav is connecting us to kingship, to abundance, and we're in that sugya right now. We're learning some main dynamics to it, but the idea of all the light that comes down from the upper worlds and through the Zeir and Pin and through Yesod is now manifested through Malchut, and Malchut is connecting us to David Melech, which we're going to be connecting to his yard site very soon on Shavuot, and the receiving of Matan Torah on Shavuot. In the ultimate level of connecting to kingship is to have pity, is to have mercy, is to be with people, like in the same way that we learned that, you know, Moshe Rabbeinu achieved such a tremendous level when he left Mitzrayim. He became a king in Cush, and he went to many wars, and he battled, and he conquered, and he conquered, and he conquered, and he married the queen of Cush. He married the queen of Cush, and through this marriage of the queen of Cush, he achieved levels, but he never was connected to her on an intimate level. But it wasn't until he connected to, as a king, it wasn't until he connected to the level of connecting to Sephora that in a way he left this very, very high place, and he went down to this level with Sephora, and through that level of him going down to that level and leaving this lofty place of excellence and going down to the daughter of the priest of Midian, going down, was he able to connect to the level of pity, and that level of pity and not being from Bnei Israel and not having this Masorah and all these different things allowed him to connect to a level of pity, and that allowed the gates of kingship of Malchut to open up for him. So we should all see the people in our lives that we should not judge. We should look to elevate. The last line we say silently. Okay, so thank you everybody for participating in that. The shir.
All right, share's over, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty much
All
done.
right,
Yeah, we're pretty much done now, but we're gonna say a few final points before we all get out of here. We're gonna say a few final points. And so one of the main final points is like this, or maybe it's the beginning, who knows? Bereshit is the beginning or the end, who knows? But it's like this. So the last three shirim, we've been learning. We've been going very deep inside of this idea that Rabbi Hirsch talks about in Horeb, which is the 613 mitzvot being broken into three categories: the level of mishpatim, the laws between men; the laws of hukim, the laws of things that are subordinate men, like nature and our bodies, everything that we have this koach over, and this idea of mitzvot that allows us to connect directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, directly to Hashem. And so we started off to understand this idea from the frame of, first we started off understanding that we're in this new era. And this new era started off in the agriculture age. And this agriculture age was ruled by things like the church and theology, and people were working on farms. And then we progressed into the 20th century. The 19th century was agriculture. The 20th century was this time where, you know, we moved into factories and supply lines, and we left the farms, and machinery came in, and that was really the birth of the nation state, because trade and these things became robust, and this idea of patriotism and these ideas dominated, you know, the Western world. And then now we progressed, and then we talked about so that's the 18th century was agriculture. The 19th century was this time of factories, and now we progressed to the 20th century in our conversation, which was this idea of the computer age and the corporation, and how businesses and business philosophy became the theme in the Western world. And now we're talking about the present day today, which is all about the conceptual age. And the conceptual age is the first time in human history, maybe since the early ages of maybe the Avos, and all the way going back to Adam Rishon. We're going back now to this time where now the individual has as much power, the individual has much power as a corporation, and has the same amount of power on many levels as a nation state. And an individual has the same amount of power as religious philosophy, meaning that an individual through technology today has this ability to bring massive amounts of destruction and klipa to the world, or they have this ability to bring a tremendous amount of enlightenment. So that's what we started off. And then we went into another level, which was you have something? No. Okay. In yesterday's shir, we went even more in depth, and we really focused on that individual, and we really talked about what's really going on. What are the parameters of this individual and how much they can accomplish and how much they could affect? What does that actually mean? And today, what we're going to discuss is what stops us from becoming great. Every one of us has this tremendous potential, every single person, and let's quantify what we're talking about great. Every single person is born, and I'm going to quote the Lubavitch Rebbe on this, but many Hasidic masters says, Lubavitch Rebbe, he says, the day that you're born is the day that Hashem decided that the world cannot live without the unique contribution you're supposed to bring to humanity. That's the day you were born. Hashem says, okay, this particular soul, the world needs what this soul has to contribute. And so therefore, I'm going to bring this soul into the world, into a particular predicament that's going to create this particular soul. But this particular soul has a unique contribution that they're supposed to give to the entire world. And that's why Hashem brought you into this world. And the Lubavitch Rebbe says, goes even further. He says, not only that, he says that this particular contribution that this person is supposed to make, the lifetime that he was given is supposed to educate him on what makes him unique, why God brought him into the world, and how to contribute it to the world. And so the challenge that we all have is, how do I get to that point? Because we have a room full of people right now, and just imagine if all the people here knew exactly what their unique contribution is, what made them unique, and how they were supposed to contribute it to humanity. First starting with their family, then their community, and then the whole world. How do we get to that point? So in order to understand how do we get to that point, we got to see what stops us. What's stopping us from understanding who we are and what makes us great. So I'm going to start off with a popular story. Maybe some of you guys may have heard of this, from the Gemara. And the story is about a person who was having dreams, and they were living in Husla Aretz, and they kept having dreams. And it was the same dream over and over again. And the dream was affecting this person so much that they said, you know what? I need to understand what this dream is about. Why does Hashem keep putting this dream into my makshava? Why does it keep disrupting my sleep? Why is it keeping me up all night? It's taking over my life, this dream. So this person packs their bags, and then they go. It didn't break. Good belt to blast. Yeah. It shows the strength of the lemur. And so the point is, the point is saying, so this individual was having this dream that was keeping them up all night, and they couldn't really get past this dream. And it got to a point where this person packed their bags and they came to Eretz Israel. And they came to Eretz Israel, and he met with over 70 dream interpreters. And every dream interpreter that he went to gave him an interpretation of the dream, and they were all different, and every interpretation that he received came true. Every single dream interpretation. So the Maharal says on this particular sugya, he says there's 3 types of dreams. He says, and I think we can all relate to this, because when I read this, we can relate to it. The first type of dream is like scattered like experiences. Like you're over here at the mall, next thing you know, you're here at the pier, next thing you know, you're in the boat. Next thing, we've all had these dreams, right? And it's just scattered things. The second type of dream is more of an elongated storyline. And it's such an elongated storyline that you almost think that it's like actually happening. You like wake up like, whoa, I'm glad that wasn't true. Like, this is a crazy dream. And then you have this third level of a dream, and this third level of a dream is a direct message. It's a direct message from Hashem and that dream always comes true. So he says the first dream, that's the scattered messages, he said what that is pretty much subconscious experiences that we had during the day, and then we go to sleep, and then we have these subconscious experiences while we're asleep, and we're just experiencing them through our subconscious. We have a conscious experience. We go here, we think about this, we read this book, we see the news, this, blah, 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 we have this conversation. And so the dream that's scattered is pretty much just subconscious experiences. It doesn't have that much meaning. The second level of a dream, which is elongated story, does have meaning. And we should talk to a rabbi or someone who's knowledgeable in interpreting dreams. And that dream, it has meaning in it, it has messages, right? Sometimes it's not so good, sometimes it's okay, whatever. But the point is, we have these long things. In fact, in Masechet Brakot, they have a whole almost Masecta or ninth parak.
It's all about you. The whole thing.
The whole thing's about dreams. If you have a dream about Ishmael and whatever, that means your dreams are going to be heard. Actually, it says this. And yeah, right. And so it goes into all these different dynamics of those dreams. But the third type of dream, he says, is Minei Shemayim. And he said this dream is actually a form of prophecy that Hashem gives to you, right? And so that dream is something that generally comes true. And he used Yosef Asadik, for example, as we talked about in the Anna B'Kok. He had this amazing dream about what was going to happen to his brothers, but the full clarity of what that dream meant is when he got older. So those are the three dreams. So the idea of a dream itself and its interpretation is basically taking information that was given to you that you already had inside of your subconscious. We're only going to focus on the second type of a dream, which actually has a meaning. In the way, and so the person who had these dreams in Hutzla Aretz, but went to Eretz Israel and got it interpreted, he's holding by the second dream, the elongated story that had a meaning, right? Similar to Pharaoh, right? And I think through this conversation, we're going to understand how Yosef Asadik interpreted Pharaoh's dream, but in a way, he created reality, right? Because the dreams that we have and how we see reality and how we experience reality is a subconscious desire, right? So I have a desire. So you take a kid and for example, you have a kid and the kid says like, there's different personality types, right? Some kids they're more aggressive and they want to be builders. Some kids are more quiet and they like to read and maybe express themselves through writing. Another kid is, shy and he likes to talk to his friends and let them speak for him, different things. So he's speaking for himself. Okay, so now we know you a little bit better. But the point is saying that this particular aspect of your personality, how do we understand it in Western society? Is through professions. So when you go to a young kid and you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? The kid says, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a basketball player. I want to be a writer. I want to be a scuba diver. I want to be a lifeguard. I want to be a race car driver. These professions that the kid has, it's not connected to the job market. This is how he understands his personality, and through these different opportunities that have been given to him, that's how he expresses who he is through these professions. So the kid who wants to be a basketball player has a certain type of personality. The kid who wants to be a race car driver has a certain type of personality. So we are defining our desires based off of professions. That's number one. Number two is, this is one of the biggest concepts of today, and remember this, is report card consciousness. And report card consciousness is what develops when we go into schools, right? Anybody who's been in the Western school system knows that every grade that you're in, every semester that you're in, this time period, is you get a report card that's given to you by a third party, your teacher, your principal, your counselors, whoever. And basically these people are now defining who you are as a person. So as the child is shaping his identity, as the child is figuring out who he is, that experience is being shaped by third parties. Unsatisfactory, failure in some cases, right? And so now this young kid is now developing who they are and their hashkafa about the world but they're not doing it independently. Another person is telling them who they are, what they should be doing, what they're good at. And so now, and that's what Rabbi Shaddai was saying, how dangerous and destructive the education system is, because at a certain age, it could take somebody and say, oh, well, you should work in computer science and you should be a janitor, based off of one person's opinion. And that particular opinion, what were you gonna say?
There's a comedian who's like, I went to community college and all my classes were outside, and the professor was like, yeah, you guys, we're outside, we're meeting outside because you should get used to working outside and getting up very early.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, that's who I am.
That's who I am, right? And so you have this, and so there's so this is the idea. So we really have to think back on our lives and think about why we were developing as people, how many other people's influences shaped who we are, how our parents' opinions shaped who we are, how our relatives' opinions shaped who we are, how the school system that we went to shaped who we are, right? How all these different opinions shaped who we are, to our community shaped who we are. And people, especially people who are Black and or considered Black, whatever that means, right? In our society, or African American or whatever, there's a whole nother social construct that shaped how we perceive ourselves. And even a person who considered themselves white, even that shaped their perception of who they are. And so we have to sit back and have a really honest moment with ourselves and say, hey, you know what? How much of myself, we having a share tonight? Today's Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we're good. No, I just didn't remember. So how much, yeah, the spirit, the shade of already here. So anyway, so the point is just saying that the point is saying that Alpha Melta, L'chaim, the greatness, and seeing the truth. So anyways, so the point is to say how much of who we are as people was shaped by other people's opinions, whether it was our siblings, whether it was our parents, whether it was our uncles and aunts and our cousins, whether it was the school system, whether it was society. How much has that shaped who we are? That's the honest moment, because if we don't start at that point, we can't venture into this new place of greatness that we're trying to get to. Right? That's what we have to get to, this place. And so there's a famous Rabbi Nachman story, right? And I know people in this room already heard it, but I got to say it because it builds on this idea. It's the idea of the chicken and the prince. You heard the story? The chicken and the prince? Okay. So, okay, great. Now I feel good. So there was a prince who lived in a kingdom with his dad, who was a king. His mom passed away. And so the prince went a little bit crazy because his mom passed away, kind of like Kanye West. And so he developed this thought in his head that he was actually a chicken. And what he would do is that he would every day he would go and he would take off of his clothes and he would go underneath the royal table when it was time to eat, and he would go underneath the royal table and he would go underneath there and basically like act like a chicken. And so the king would bring all these different people there to try to talk to this guy, what we would call modern day psychologists, whatever, to come there and talk to his son, and nothing worked. And so one day, this Jewish guy who actually lived, a rabbi who lived in the community, heard about this issue, and he says, hey, he heard that there was a reward for anybody who could help this prince. And so he said, hey, I can help out. And so the rabbi comes and he sees this prince, and this is all, Pekuach Nefesh. What he does is he sees this prince underneath the table with all of his clothes off. So what does the rabbi do? He takes off all of his clothes and he goes under the table with the prince, who thinks he's a chicken. And he's like eating, he's like sitting with him, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's talking to him. And the prince was like, wait, why are your clothes off? Why are your clothes off? He says, because I'm a chicken. That's right. That's what the rabbi says. He responds, I'm a chicken. What do you mean? That's why my clothes are off. And he's like, oh, okay, you're a chicken? So, he eats with him, blah, blah, blah. He eats and he leaves. He comes back the next day. He's there and he's like, he goes down with the prince But this time he goes in there, but he has a shirt on. And he's like, and the prince is like, why do you have a shirt on? Like, I thought you were a chicken. He's like, chickens can have shirts. What's wrong with having a shirt? Chickens have shirts. What's wrong? I have a shirt. I can come on with a chicken. So he has a shirt on. He eats with him. Next day he comes back, same thing. He puts on boxer shorts. He's like, why do you have boxer shorts on? So, chicken can wear boxer shorts. Where's the rule that says chicken can have boxer shorts? Okay. And it goes on and on until he puts on his pants, his socks, his shoes, his jacket, everything. And so towards the end, he gets to this point where he's like, he's doing these things. And so he comes, and then after he's dressed, he comes and he gives the prince a shirt. He says, put on a shirt. You're a chicken. Chickens wear shirts. See me, I'm dressed. He's like, all right. And so he goes through this whole process of every day bringing him another article of clothing, to the point he says, you know what? Chickens, we can sit at the table. We don't have to be underneath the table. And he's like, really? So yeah, chickens, whatever we want. He's like, all right. So they sit at the table. Yeah, they sit at the table, and he's there, and they're eating with their hands, blah, blah, blah. Next day he comes back, we're sitting at the table again. He's like, chickens, we can use silverware. We can eat with silverware. What's the big deal? So chickens, we can do whatever. Right? 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 Right. They weren't Sephardi. And so the point is saying he goes through this whole process with this prince to the point that the prince realized that even though he thought he was a chicken, he was not limited by that definition. And to the point that he was able to live and function as a full-blown human being. And so there's many different shitas on that story and how to interpret it. But over here, I would say that the way that we can understand that story is to be able to really look at ourselves and say, are we living in terms of who we really are? Or are we living based off an idea that we've been presented with about ourselves? In the same way that the rabbi came to be able to help this person who thought he was a chicken elevate and grow himself. We're almost done. Elevate and grow himself in the same way that Hashem gave us a Torah for us to understand who we are. But the only way that we could really connect to the idea if we use the Torah properly. Because if we use it as a way of being religious, in I have these traditions, I have these ideas of who I am, then this whole process of being a light to the nation is forgotten about. Because the ultimate point of being a light to the nations is being able to show the nations how to find out who they really are. Why they're here in this world. Why did Hashem bring them in the world when he did? Why did Hashem make them unique? And what's the best way for them to share their uniqueness to the rest of the world? That's what we're supposed to teach the world, because these are the ideas that remove war. These are the ideas of people being selfish and seeing other people in famine. These are the ideas that make people see themselves as separate from each other. These ideas of racism and division and inequality and these whole things. And even gender, understanding who we are as genders, male and female. This comes with the expression of what makes us unique. Go ahead.
I see this. I think the nimshal of the story is how to get the Gullus Jew out of his Gullus.
Yeah.
Because the Gullus Jew thinks he's a chicken under the table, and we go, hey, you don't have to be ruled by the hen. You can have a little. You can be in charge. You can be in charge of the hen. It's good, right? Slowly but surely. Oh, you don't have to be subordinate to your neighborhood government unit. You have a voice. You can go, speak. Slowly but surely, the Gullus Jew becomes the Jew of the Tanakh.
Exactly, the victorious.
And he said, I can sit at the table with the other nations. And soon he sits at the head of the table.
Exactly. And so, thank you, Rabbi Yishel. And so that's the point. The point is saying that there's a set of belief systems that we have about ourselves and our existence that are not connected to the reason why Hashem brought us into this world. And so we have to do the work. So, and so the point is to say how does the system of the Torah allow us to get to the place of revealing what makes us unique in this world? how to allow us to understand our purpose in this world and how to bring our purpose into this world to the world itself, right? How do we do that? And so that's when we go back to this idea of the 613 Mitzvot System. And the 613 Mitzvot System is broken into three parts, as we stated earlier: Mishpatim, Hukim, and Mitzvot. And so the idea of Mishpatim is really ultimately expressing that Hashem created me with strengths, and Hashem created me with certain weaknesses. And these strengths and these weaknesses that God created me with, he also gave me the antidote on how to deal with these things. And so the idea of Mishpatim is going back to the original issue with Adam Rishon, right? Adam Rishon had two sons. One of the sons eventually took the life of the other. So that's the opposite of Mishpatim. That's the opposite of Mishpatim. So what is the correction? Obviously, Adam's soul was reincarnated, Hevel's soul was reincarnated, Cain, the whole thing. But the point is to say that it's this transformational process of how I see my fellow man, how I see living beings outside of me. When we say man, we say man, woman, mankind. How do I transform my thinking from a place of selfishness? Like you have a baby, right? A baby's born. The first thing to do, the baby does, is nurse from the mother, right? That's the first thing that the baby does. So the baby's thought process is the desire to receive for themselves. This is the intellectual level of the baby, right? And God creates a sequence through the Masorah that eventually you get married, which takes you out of the state of selfishness of yourself and give to another person. And that selfishness of yourself expands even further, and you have children, and now you have to care for other people. And that selfishness past yourself even evolves as you grow in Torah, as responsibility for the community, and depending on how far you go, even the world. So the whole process is being able to leave this baby state of selfishness, of me consciousness, and to get into the consciousness of we consciousness, which is the marriage, and then the consciousness of us consciousness, which is the family and the community, the call, the collective. And so the idea of Mishpatim creates this basis of laws that allows us to start to rationalize this experience outside of ourselves. Because what stops our ability to see who we really are is our own personal selfishness, is our own personal ego, our desire to receive for the self alone. And so that issue is what not only affects us as individuals, but it affects an entire society. How do people go to war with each other? Because they're focused on their desire to receive for oneself alone. We have to transform ourselves into the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. That's the difference. This is the difference between Gevurah and Tiferet. This idea of Gevurah says, this is a limitation that I have to set based off of what's going on. Tiferet says, no, here's a combination of Hesed and Gevurah, Hesed and Gevurah together. And this is Tiferet. This sequence, this circular consciousness is what we're ultimately trying to get to. So as we think about the rest of the world and what's going on in the rest of the world, this is the idea. And so, yes, last year we talked about this idea of the potential of every human being through technology to be able to express their uniqueness, their unique story, their unique gifts, their unique talents, and be able to put it on a platform where they could communicate it to the rest of the world. So what makes it difficult for us to do that? Because we haven't got to the point where we left this state as a society of the desire to receive just for myself, but the desire to receive for myself for the sake of sharing. So when Hashem gives us things like tefillah, he gives us all this rukniot throughout the year through Yom Tovim. He gives us all these different halakot that allow us to receive Hashem's light. But if we're receiving Hashem's light for the sake of my redemption, for me receiving, then that light doesn't go anywhere. But if I'm receiving for the sake of sharing, then now it's a whole new era of dimension of consciousness. I think I used this example before, but I'm using it again. Stephen Jobs, for example. When Stephen Jobs created Apple, the idea was literally he wanted to conquer the establishment that he felt were hoarding information for themselves. Other companies like IBM, one of the first Apple commercials was a lady throwing a hammer at this big TV screen that had Big Brother on it in this whole thing. I think it was 1984 or something like this. And so, before my wife was married, but was born. But the point is just saying that this idea was conquering an existing system so a new era could come in. So how did they manifest that as a company? They created hardware, which was computer, that just looked cool, that fit into the feng shui of the house, because they wanted to make it accessible even for the housewife that was at home dealing with the home. They wanted the computer to be accessible to the whole family. So the fact that they had this desire to have more than just making money from hardware, but they had a desire to fix the world, using computers to fix the world, they were able to tap in to a higher level of creativity that allowed them to go past all of their competitors. So the point is to say, do I see my life in that same way? Do I see my existence in that same way? Do I say to myself, you know what? My life that I've had, my story that I have, is it for me and I'm embarrassed by it? Or am I saying that, you know what? No, the life that I have is actually Hashem gave me the exact coordinates and the exact system and the exact story that I need to be able to understand, recognize, and appreciate and celebrate to be able to empower people who have lives similar to mine. And, you gonna say something? Please. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, fine. And I'm saying that is the transformational of consciousness. This is how we tap into the 21st century in a healthy way. To see that, like, okay, you know what? The things that I went through, the things that I was challenged with, the things that I had to deal with in life were actually the mechanisms, the gifts that God gave to me that allows me to be able to communicate with the masses. This is who I am. And if I don't get to that place, then I'm not going to be able to do it. The belief systems that I have, like I remember, before, when I was living in the United States, my mom got me my mom's a professor. My mom's a professor. Okay. My mom's a professor. My mom's a professor. And so she got me into the idea of, building curriculum because, I wasn't such a great student in school, but I went out in the world and had success as a business person, entrepreneur. So she said, you know what? Your habits of mind, because she wrote her dissertation as a PhD on habits of mind, your habits of mind could benefit a lot of people, and so especially young kids. And so I worked with her and we developed curriculums specifically for kids to be able to start actualizing their ability to be entrepreneurs. Right. And so the point is to say,
Bro,
yeah,
we gonna start we want a little bit break. We don't want to be polite and go.
No.
Rest a little bit because we're gonna come back in a few minutes. So tomorrow you give us.
I wanted to, I think I distilled a main idea from what you've said tonight. And that is, Klal Yisrael is befuddled because they don't understand why the world just can't get it.
that's what we're going to.
But it's because Klal Yisrael, in the context of, Klal Yisrael is the religious aspect of Israel.
Yeah.
Right? Everything else is external.
Yeah.
The religious aspect of Israel is not receiving to give.
Yeah.
They're receiving for themselves,
Exactly.
to build themselves.
Exactly.
And what do they say when the nations come? 7 mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Push off. Like,
Yeah.
We're getting our light and you guys can have the crumbs. We're expecting that it's like this. It's like a man wants to marry a woman that he really, really loves.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's an amazing woman. She needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Like all
All the Kalim. Yeah.
So he comes and she notices, I don't think that you could fix me.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What the heck is wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And this is like the attitude of Klal Yisrael vis-a-vis the nations right now. We can't understand why they won't accept us. It's because we're not building ourselves to give to them.
Exactly.
We're building ourselves in a selfish way.
Exactly.
We see it. We understand the way that it's working.
Exactly.
And you're saying that once we change our mindset, the entire world will just go, oh, yes, now I see what's going on. I'll marry you now, so to speak.
You saying the other nations?
The other nations will say, yeah, okay, let's go.
Because you're giving to me properly.
Yeah, because I see that you're receiving for me, not for you.
Exactly.
You get what you're getting, it's really for me.
Exactly.
And I can see that. Whereas today, it's very, very obvious that it's not like that.
No.
We make it very clear to the nations that the Torah is for us and it's not for you.
Exactly.
So why would any Kli want to attach itself to or with that mentality? And that's what I. That's what
No, 100%. That's the key point, and that is a macro level. And I'm saying on a micro level, as individuals, it's about changing that thought process for ourselves. And I'll end it out on the story because we have another share coming right after this. I think we're okay because it's at 8:30. But I remember when I was first starting on my process of conversion.
I remember back in the day.
Back in the day, back when I was a young strap. And I remember that I had a teacher and I was meeting with him every week or every day, actually. I was meeting with him every day. And I just remember on this one particular Sunday, I went to meet with him, and it was around like 12 noon or whatever. And he said to me, he's like, hey, Shabbat was great, right? He said, did you have a good time with Shabbat? And I was like, yeah, Shabbat was amazing, this, and I love the tefillah and all the great food that I ate and everything. And he was like, so you were really like fulfilled, like you felt really connected. And I was like, yeah. And he said, well, so why weren't you at Shakris this morning? Because I didn't go to Shakris that morning. It's like, this, I slept a little bit late. I knew you guys probably wouldn't be there by the time I got there, blah, 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 the whole thing. And he said, this is the difference between being a Jew versus a non-Jew. He says, a non-Jew, they get filled up on light for themselves, and they're good. He says, but being a Jew is having the responsibility of bringing down light for other people. And that's what we do in Shachrit, Mincha, and Arvit. Yes, we're filling ourselves, but ultimately we're filling the other nations as well as a form of responsibility. So the point is just to say that to really connect to the creativity that exists and the opportunity that exists in this particular generation is to start the process of transforming our own thinking from ourselves, our own consciousness, the desire to receive for oneself, and to be able to transform our consciousness to the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. And by doing that, we now connect ourselves to a whole nother level of creativity. We connect ourselves on an original mission. And and I'll say this is just a point that I always say on this idea, is when you think about the story of Jethro coming to visit Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Machlokas, was it before Har Sinai, after Har Sinai? The Machlokas. But the point of the story in Derisa says that they had a Suda, right? And everybody was there, and Moshe was the one serving, right? He was serving, right? This is how the Derisa says. And so there's a Machlokas. Was it that he was honoring his father, or did Jethro convert, right? That was another point. So I am holding in this conversation by the Shita, he didn't convert. But that story was teaching us, Moshe put together that Suda for his father-in-law with all the elders and all the wise people to show them that this is our mission. Our mission is to bring the person that's far away into this place, and I'm not even going to eat. I'm just going to serve, because this is our Shita. This is why Hashem chose us to receive the Torah, or we're about to receive the Torah for this exact reason. And so
we realize that we're serving the nations where we can get.
That's the point. And that's his idea. And even for my own personal Yeshua, if I don't see my own self, like if a person has the ability to give over Torah and they're not giving it, like we said in other Ashirim, they're stealing. They're stealing from the poor people of the world. That this shir is going to come out, and somebody's going to hear it that never really maybe heard any ideas. It's going to put it on social media. Somebody's going to hear it.
The question is really though, how does Yitro come to visit the Jewish people in the desert, right? They're getting fed from the sky. They got water from a rock.
Mhm.
And, you know, there's clouds around them protecting them. They're flying. They're not even standing on the ground. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Like, how? You know, nowadays, okay, the Jews, you know, everyone hates the Jews. Everyone's like, oh, they're just stealing everyone's money. Blah, blah. There's no miracles. Fine. But, like,
I'll tell you why, because in many ways, the sorcerers of Egypt could do a lot of things that
yeah, but not like that.
on many levels. Where do we see in the Mako where things fell apart? When they got to the lice, the sub-microscopic thing, okay, big clouds, big shows of things. Okay, so you can see how he was not going after the grandiose image of what Moshe was doing, because he can also make that.
So you think
Who's Moshe? Who is he? I want to give him my daughter. Oh yeah, I want to give him my daughter. Now, how does he act? Oh wow, it's about mitos. It's not about the big, massive projection on the screen that it's putting on.
And the issue was not if he converted Bechal, but was he converted at that moment? Yeah, he could have still converted later. And what was conversion?
No, but his question is like, why not immediately when he saw everything he didn't do it?
Yeah, but I
So
mean,
look at this. I'm trying to defend your
No. He's asking a separate point. I'm saying like the Midrashim say that when the Yam Suf split, that all the nations of the world knew that something was happening in the world.
Like they were holding a cup.
And it was split. But who did they go to? They went to Bilam. All the nations went to Bilam and said what was going on, because he was the rock star. He was the Obama. He was the guy with all the answers that everyone listened to. Yeah, he was that guy, right? So he went to that. He went to that world.
That's precious.
And then, but out of all the people who heard, because Bilam told them the Jewish people are going to be receiving this Torah on Mount Sinai, on this whole thing. And so, out of all the people who knew about it, Yethro was the only one that went. But one of the key points about Yethro is that what does the Pasukim say? He heard the stories and the miracles that happened to Bnei Israel, and that's what made him want to come. So I'm saying that is the Shita to our Torah itself. That's our Chumash. So the point is, it says, as those people read our Chumash, which is the biggest selling book in the world, what are we going to do when they come? Are we going to provide a suda for them? Are we going to let them know they're welcome? And this is our purpose, is to create a safe space, as the woke people say, a safe space for you to be able to do that, or we're going to push them away. And in ourselves, the opportunities that come to us in life, are we going to receive those opportunities from Hashem to be teachers, to be Baal Hesed, to be Baal Sadaqa, to do all these great things that we have in our ability? Or are we going to say, oh, well, you know what? Everyone else isn't doing it, so why should I do it? Baruch atah Adonai. Oh, wait, we're not finished.
Yeah.
Should I finish the block or we're at the
No,
same?
it's good.
Okay.
I had one question. If you are ending
Mhm.
your shiur, then I reserve then my question.
No, please, let's go. We got time.
The question of whether Yitro converted or not, I just wanted to quote the Midrash Takiot.
Yeah.
It says, Yitro Gilgul Kain Hatov.
Yeah.
What does that Gilgul Hatov mean? If he did not convert.
Is he only Haitov if he converts?
Because because I cannot remember throughout the
Midrashim.
the Torah
Yeah.
where there is a mention of somebody converted.
There's some people that say that he came, he converted, and he did a suda for him.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, I cannot remember the Idah Chumash, the Torah, where it says somebody converted.
You're saying we don't have any, like,
I did not see that.
yeah, I hear that.
But everything that is said is about deductions.
Yeah.
If he came, then he must have, or she came, then she must have, or he must have converted.
Yeah.
Sages have said.
Yeah.
I'm asking myself, when it says, he said, Gilgul of Cain,
Yeah,
Hatov.
yeah.
What is that Hatov? What did they say just describe the word Hatov?
The way,
Never mind.
no. The way I heard that is he corrected Cain. He corrected that neshama.
Yes.
In this lifetime, he corrected it.
How did he correct it? I'm now asking myself, how did if I'm a Gilgul of somebody,
Yeah.
how would it possible? How could possibly rectify that soul?
Yeah.
Is it when I remain in a report, or is it when I am transcend to the side of Kedusha?
You know, the thing is, I think it depends if the issue with Yethro was before or after Har Sinai. If it was before Har Sinai, there wasn't really anything to really convert to. It was more accepting an approach to life. After Har Sinai, it was a nation. So in order to join that nation, he would have had to go through Gerus.
So then the multitude that the sages have said that Abraham converted in Haran, it's not conversion. If that is an argument.
But I'm saying, is a nation already created at this point or
The
not?
nation was not created,
Okay,
it
so
did not exist.
so what are you converting to then?
Exactly, yes. So that is my question.
Yeah,
If the argument is before Sinai,
yeah,
those who joined the nation
yeah,
is not considered as conversion.
yeah,
Then Abraham did not convert anybody.
yeah. But I'm saying,
So is
yeah.
Yaakov did not convert Rachel.
Yeah, but they were already of the same family. You see what I'm saying? But I'm saying even before, like when we say conversion, first of all, we're talking about gerus, right? Ger is a stranger, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so what makes them a stranger? Because they're living differently than the rest of the world.
Yes.
Jacob was a stranger in Laban's house. He says, I was a ger
Yes.
in Laban's house.
Yes.
Abraham is referred to as a ger.
Yes.
Moshe Rabbeinu, when he came down, even with Bnei Israel, was considered a ger,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's just to say that we're saying conversion in our modern day sense, meaning that you had to go do bris milah, you had to go to the mikvah, these different things. But then it was a shift of consciousness that made you a stranger to the rest of the world.
So, but the sages have said, when, even at the absurd level, they said, when it says Abraham came from Haran
Yeah,
with people he made, the souls that he made
yeah.
in Haran.
Came back as,
The Chazal, the sages said, they understood that word to mean the souls that they have called Abraham
yeah.
converted.
No, I heard another sheet on that.
Very good.
Okay, so they said that the souls that they made were in Shemaim. And those souls that were in Shemaim later came down as people who became Gary. So anyways,
Okay.
we'll finish it up. So wait, Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Adonai, Leolam.
Baruch, all right, Baruch
Adonai.
Baruch Adonai.
Leolam.
Leolam.
Amen.
Amen, amen.
Amen. Chazal Baruch.
Yeah.